This is what these homes is built out of. This right here. Paper. One storm, that joint is gone. One storm, that joint is gone, bro. Like, people that are realtors tell me ahead of time, do not buy new builds, new homes. These things are cookie cutter homes. What's good, guys? If y'all new to my channel, make sure y'all hit that like button and subscribe button. Leave a comment below. My name is Jonathan. We cover all things business, finance, lifestyle. Y'all can see the contact below right there. If you're returning to my channel, I appreciate you. Appreciate the love and support that y'all been giving me, man. We just gonna keep going, you know, keep reacting, keep dropping videos. But let's get into it. Next video is why so many young adults are still living with their parents in the U.S.
Between 18 and 34.
Let's get it.
About 1 in 3 Americans between 18 and 34 years old live with their parents. And while you may have heard more about this recently, this trend isn't new.
Between 2005 and 2015, the share just grew very steeply over this 10-year period. Since then, it's been fairly...
18 to 34-year-olds living with their parents. Men. Oh, hold up. It's more men? It's more men living with their parents? On who? That's interesting. That's interesting. 18, yeah, read that correctly. Yeah, more men in especially in 2019, way more men. It was like 37% men and like 32% women. Wow, that's interesting. More men are living with their parents.
Well, there was an uptick, of course, during the pandemic. In the wake of the pandemic, those rates of parental co-residence are now about where they were right before. Part of the reason we see this escalation of young adults not leaving the nest or returning to the nest is this idea that it was harder and harder for them to weather shocks.
Nearly 30% of Gen Z said they would like to save, but don't make enough money. And roughly 2 in 5 millennials and Gen Z adults feel it's harder to build financial wealth now than when their parents were their age because of
I agree.
The adult Gen Z said they would like to save,
but don't make enough.
But don't make enough.
How about you guys? That's true. They don't pay you enough, but you got it. Multiple streams. You got to get to it some way, somehow.
And roughly 2 in 5 millennials and Gen Z adults feel it's harder to build financial wealth now than when their parents were their age because of the economy.
I agree. Like, they was buying houses for like 30 bands back in the day. Like, what? Apartments was $700. Apartments used to be $700. Like, bruh, you know how cheap that is right now? If you can get an apartment for $700, if I could have got an apartment for $700, I would have moved out right after high school. It's like, no. I would have moved right after college. Or I would have been out in college if I could get an apartment for $700.
7-year-old Victoria Franklin has been living with her mother in New Jersey since she graduated college in 2019.
I saw all of the money that I was saving, and I thought, maybe I should stay home for a little bit, and I didn't feel an urgency to move out.
Not everyone is enthusiastic about this trend.
You guys are making 6 figures together. You can't tell me you can't afford a house. They just don't want to spend their money.
Oh, yeah. 36% of Americans said in a 2022 survey that more young adults living with their parents is bad for society. So here's why young Americans are choosing to live with their parents and what the implications are for the U.S. economy.
My name is Victoria Franklin. I am 27 years old, and I live in my childhood home with my mother and my boyfriend.
Victoria graduated from the university.
Hold on, bro. Hold on. Well, your mother and your boyfriend? See, you can't do that in a black household, man. You can't do that in a black household. I'm sorry.
Of Miami in 2019 and moved it.
You want to live with your significant? Would y'all live with y'all significant other with y'all parents? Let me know in the comments below if y'all gonna live with y'all
her mom when she was looking for a job.
After I saw the cost of living and things like that after
I couldn't do that.
I graduated, that maybe I'd be home for about a year.
Both of y'all together and y'all can't split something? Okay, what's going on?
More than half of Gen Z adults say they don't make enough money to live the life they want due to high cost of living.
I ended up bartending and waitressing until October, where I got my first offer, so it did take a little bit longer than I expected. Currently live at the Jersey Shore, and I was commuting into New York City, which takes about 2 hours each way. And I thought, in 6 months or so, I'll move into the city, be closer to the job, and the pandemic threw a wrench in those plans.
Okay.
Victoria now works a fully
So it
remote
was right
job,
during the
which she
pandemic.
says she probably wouldn't have if it weren't for the pandemic. Without a commute to worry about, she was able to stay at her mom's for longer.
It's a lot harder for young people today to save up for, markers of the American dream than it was for previous generations. Part of the reason we see this escalation of young adults not leaving the nest or returning to the nest is this idea that it was harder and harder for them to weather shocks. And so, for example, if they suffered a layoff or they suffer some sort of health shock or they got in a car accident, if they didn't have any additional credit to weather that shock, they would end up moving back home. The financial stability of young adults, their ability to pay for things if they got into an emergency, was one of the big factors influencing whether or not they were living on their own or living with their parents.
A significant number of Gen Z adults and millennials lack emergency savings. In fact, 46% of millennials and 32% of Gen Z have more credit card debt than emergency savings. This can have ramifications for setting up a financial future.
Yeah, I got a lot of friends in this predicament right now. You can't buy a home.
1 in
It's
4
too
Gen Z
expensive,
adults
right?
say housing costs are one of the biggest challenges to financial success.
The prices of homes has escalated over the last few decades.
And if you live in a major city, it's even harder, man. Like it's ridiculous. So like average home gonna run you probably, from what I've seen, minimum 300K is like the minimum, and that's like townhouse, older townhouse. You want a newer townhouse now? They build a lot where I'm at right now. I think I asked, it was like 400 or 500K starting base, and the size of this, you know what I mean? Like singular townhouse, you get a little patch of grass in the front, barely any land. It's crazy. Like it's definitely harder when I was looking. So that's why I'm glad like I was able to find a good deal, But if I wasn't able to find a good deal, for sure I wouldn't be able to afford to buy a house right now. And with the salary you're making, you know what I mean? 100K is supposed to be enough to buy a house, crib back in the day. Now 100K is 50,000 now. Like no,
than actual incomes. So it is actually much harder for a millennial or a Gen Z to save up for a down payment to buy a home. And that's something that bears out in the data.
Nothing.
The pandemic did have a lot to do with it. I saw how much I was saving.
It's not nothing. A lot of people live off that, but
I was like, maybe I shouldn't be paying, upwards of $3,000 a month and making somebody else richer when I could stay at home, save that money, and spend it on where I want to spend it. Between my job and my bartending and waitressing, I make anywhere from $85,000 to $95,000 a year. I would say about 40 to 50% of my salary is going right into savings. My mentality is, why rent and give my money to someone else when I can start to own? And so a big chunk of that money is going to go towards a down payment on a house.
Young adults ages 25 to 34 in high cost of living areas are more likely to live with their parents. Nearly 26% of young adults in New Jersey were living with at least one of their parents in 2022. The median household income in Oceanport, New Jersey, where the Franklins live, was nearly $133,000 in
I know New Jersey expensive, so
2022, while the median value of a home in the region was around $644,000.
My dad built this house for $350,000 and was making probably $10,000 to $15,000 less than I was. My mom wasn't working up.
He built? They was different back then. Regular men don't build houses no more. Like regular guys.
And they were able to afford a $350,000 house on a $70,000 a year salary with a son. And that is just, that's not even the American dream anymore. That's not even possible. My aunt, who I fight with all the time, is always saying how you have to give somewhere, right? And my cousin said something to her the other day and said, we're giving everywhere. We don't get property. We don't get good school systems. Whatever we're trading off is too much to trade off.
Victoria had brought up some conflict with her aunt a few times.
Who's coming in the driveway?
Oh, this is my Aunt Judy.
Appreciate anybody that's in the live right now. Appreciate you tuning in.
So I asked Aunt Judy to come on over and talk to us.
I talked about how much we fight about millennials, yes, but millennials living at home, and how you always say, well, you have to sacrifice something, but how much we're sacrificing. We don't get like a big property, or we don't get like a nice house, or it's not in a good school system.
But you have to start somewhere. You have to start anywhere. Just start your portfolio is what I told you. I don't care what it is. You don't have to live in Oceanport your first time.
No, but you were able to live in Oceanport the first time.
Okay, I guess it was different times.
Gen X and baby boomers may have a tougher time understanding what young adults are going through today because they enjoyed, until the pandemic recession hit, a solid almost 15 years of uninterrupted economic expansion. Baby boomers, Gen X, they weathered many economic downturns, including major recessions. But I think the big difference is that when they were starting to form their own households and starting to accumulate wealth, housing and higher ed were both more affordable relative to their incomes than they are now.
When I started out, I was making $35,000 a year. That was nothing. And he was making $35,000 a year. You guys are making six figures together. You can't tell me you can't afford a house. They just don't want to spend their money.
Together is different, but who want to go into a mortgage with a boyfriend or a girlfriend? Who want to sign paperwork like that? If you sign paperwork, you gotta be with a wife or a husband. We ain't signed no paperwork, and we ain't married yet. That's first things first. We ain't doing that.
Oh, yeah.
With your boyfriend, nah, we ain't doing that.
No, I don't know.
You want
What
it?
we do is mine.
It's my first house. 250 maybe? 270?
That doesn't exist anymore. Where am I finding a $270?
That's what I'm saying, bro. They bought. I saw something online. It was like Gen X. They bought homes. Gen X boomers. They bought home for a T-shirt, 2 cents, and a pack of gum, and now they selling that joint for an M.
I'm not making
That
35.
goes to show you that our real estate is an asset. Like, you gotta invest in real estate because you gotta put your money to work. If you don't put your money to work, inflation is gonna eat your money up. But like, real estate is one of the fastest way to grow wealth. But it's like you gotta get a good deal though. But it's gonna keep. But when you think about it, it's gonna keep going up. Cause you can't build more land. So eventually, it's gonna keep going up. Whether it went from 300 to 600,000 now. Decade, it might be close to an M, might be an 800K, it might be an M then. So it's like, get in now because it's not going down unless it's a big recession.
$1,000 a year. Combined, we made 70.
In 1995, $70,000 was the equivalent of $145,000 today.
Look at that, see?
Oh, she mad.
We do help
Dang, 145.
have a situation that what is really good
You was having if you had
for an individual
70.
person or an
Back-
individual
back in
family is
1995,
not
you was
necessarily good for the entire macro economy.
The Federal Reserve estimates in a 2019 paper that young adults who move out of their parents' house would spend around $13,000 more per year on things such as housing, food, and transportation.
One of the big boosts to consumer spending is when people form households. Whether you're a renter or a buyer, you need to furnish that house. You need to fix things up in the home to make it livable. You end up spending a lot of money during that time. So if the pace of household formation slows down, then that's going to slow down the pace of consumer spending, and that will produce a drag on the economy.
Another issue is that there aren't enough affordable properties in popular areas for younger people who are in entry-level jobs and making less money.
Any sort of housing policy needs to be multi-pronged. Are there homes that are at the price point of these prospective home buyers? What can we do to increase the housing supply? What can we do to build? What can we do to help?
The thing is, they building these homes. They built a new project right up the street from me. A month. Shoot, at this point, 2 weeks. They done put the whole frame. The joint almost done. These cookie cutter homes, bruh. This is this is what these homes is built out of. This right here. Paper. One storm, that joint is gone. One storm, that joint is gone, bruh. Like, people that are realtors tell me ahead of time, do not buy new builds, new homes. These things are cookie cutter homes.
Elder Americans to help them downsize and move into more right-sized homes that will open up larger homes for young families. So I think one alone is not really going to do it. We've got to look both at demand as well as supply.
The other major factor here is how much student loan debt young Americans have. 59% of U.S. adults say they've delayed financial milestones because of their student debt.
I do have a student loan payment. It's about $480 a month. So that's my largest expense.
The liability could be worse.
I think I'm paying like $260 a month. That's not bad. That's not bad. That's not bad.
Black
In my
borrowers
opinion, that's
who
not
tend to
bad.
have
That's
higher
not
than
bad.
average student loan debt and less wealth than white counterparts.
460?
Black
Nah, that's just
Hispanic respondents
So I'm
were
grateful
more
for
likely to say
260.
that debt was holding them back from reaching financial milestones. Less than half of white respondents said the same. The amount of debt young adults held also rose substantially between 2005 and 2014, during that period of strong escalation in that cohort living with their parents.
Aggregate student loans are such an enormous part of the economy now. And that's not a reflection of younger people making bad choices with their education. It's really a consequence in large part due to the fact that there's less public funding and going to college just is more expensive, which makes it even harder for even those college grads who are hoping to earning more money as a result of their college degrees.
Student loan debt by itself can't explain the
You're in
phenomenon,
the
especially
right
considering so many
topic.
European countries
You're in the
with
right
much
subject.
less student
You
loan
do
debt
good.
have higher rates
Major
of
in
young
STEM.
adults living with their parents. 24 out of
Major in
29 European
sociology.
countries had more 18 to 34-year-olds
Percentages of U.S. adults living with their parents in different countries. That's interesting. I see a lot more men living with their parents. It's a lot more men. Is it because we smarter, or is it because they mama's boys? I do not know why more men are living with their parents.
living with their parents in 2021 than the US. It was over 70% in Italy, Portugal, Greece, Serbia, and Croatia.
My boyfriend is Brazilian, and multi-generational homes are very common in almost everywhere else
That's how you build wealth, save, pay down your debt. Most other countries
in the world,
it's like
except in the
common.
United States. So I'm just taking a page of their playbook.
The Americans are probably the only people that they're not multi-generations in one house. And I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I think it's kind of nice. Why do we have to be so cold to push everybody out?
You know, there are a lot of cultures out there in which it is normal to live with your parents until you get married. And I don't think there's necessarily an economic explanation for that.
The Franklins would say in the US, it is the economy, but Victoria's mom is kind of okay with it.
Unfortunately, it is the economy and the world that we live in that just doesn't allow them to go live a comfortable life. So with them living here was no big deal. It's not really a problem. They're saving their money. Eventually they'll buy a house, and that works.
If I had the choice to stay home, if I can, it got to be a good deal, Like I didn't really want to rent, so I bought, but I got blessed, lucky, good opportunity. Wouldn't want to rent, but I probably would have had a roommate, to be honest with you. If I did move out and had to rent, I would get a roommate. I mean, I was cool with staying at the crib till like 28, 30 maybe. I don't know. If you able to stack like 40 bands a year, you stay home for 3, 4, 5 years, you be sitting on like 200, 300K. You could probably buy some cash. So I mean, it's all perspective though, because it like a lot of people can't stay down that long. That's hard. A lot of people can't stay down that hard. So I mean, stay down that long to make the sacrifices, make the short term sacrifices for the long term benefit. But that's the end of the story.